After a few weeks off, we are back to infect the airwaves, the unique blend of fantasy baseball and enlightenment on RotoRob Fantasy Baseball Weekly Podcast. Heard every Thursday evening at 9 p.m. EST on Blog Talk Radio. We're into late January now, which means salary arbitration hearings kick off this weekend, and spring trading starts in exactly 3 weeks. So exciting. This week, the Nationals continue their spending spree, inking ex-Jays closer Casey Janssen. Cubs fans paid their respects to the late great Ernie Banks at a statue, and former Phillies president David Montgomery will return to the team as its chairman as the Phillies move around their upper brass in an effort to get this team headed in the right direction. We're going to cover some of these stories and many more over the next 55 minutes. So pull up the beanbag chair and get comfy. I'm RotoRob, and my guest this week is Tim McLeod from Patton & Company, who still periodically writes for RotoRob.com as well. How are you this evening, Tim?
I'm just doing fine, Rob. Spring is in the air somewhere. We've only got another 2 months left of winter up here in the Great White North. But hey, anything that brings us a day closer to baseball is a very good thing. How's everything in good old Hogtown?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not doing as well as Gordon Beckham, who is heading back to the Pale House for $2 million and will actually get a shot to win the second base job and perhaps revitalize his career. We shall see.
I'm hearing that he might platoon at third base as well. It could be a very interesting situation there.
We shall see what happens. I mean, there's a guy who was supposed to be great and had a solid rookie year and just has never been able to kind of duplicate that. His career's kind of gone down and traded last year, and he's going to get a chance to come back to where it all began and see if he can do something with it. Time will tell.
Yes,
now, I want to remind you the chat room phone lines are open. Feel free to call us at 347-826-7358 or join us in the chat room. Right now we have a guest in there. Is that you?
No, I'm still trying to log on. Blog Talk Radio always gives me grief. Usually by the time I get into a chat room, a show's ended, Rob.
All right, well, you work on that. In the meantime, while you're doing that, I'll just tell people what's going on over at RotoRob.com. On the baseball side of things have been a little quiet lately. However, in the background, we're supposedly working on the 2015 RotoRob MLB Draft Kit. Trying to get a status report on how that's going has been challenging. Watch for Tim's Deep Sleepers. We're just wrapping that up, the editing. We're going to give you a sneak peek preview of that, a few of those later on tonight. Also, just a reminder that the 2015 Fantasy Baseball out, a publication that both Tim and I worked on, entitled you to a $1 savings if you buy it online. Simply use promo code ROB15. And Bob is your uncle. If you require the address, the URL to find that online, you can search for 2015 Fantasy Baseball Guide on RotoRob.com or just hit me up on Facebook or Rob at RotoRob, and I will direct you to the appropriate place. Football. The RotoRob Fantasy Football Weekly Podcast can be heard every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. EST on Blog Talk Radio, run by RotoRob NFL editor Josh Johnson and his team. This week we had our Super Bowl roundtable, and on Tuesday we released an article about how 2014 was the year of the rookie wide receiver. Watch for our All-Pro team picks and a mock draft, both coming soon. On the hockey side of things, on Wednesday we released our 2014 Fantasy Hockey Awards, and those are all with average, so check them out. Every Sunday we have the Wire Troll, usually written by our NHL editor Dakota Case, but this week penned by yours truly. And basketball, we have the Wire Troll, written every Saturday by NBA editor McCade Pearson. Also, our 2014 basketball awards are coming soon. On the video game side of things were quiet last week, but more reviews coming soon. We are now just 4 articles shy of reaching 4,000. The site's history. So should hit that mark early next week, if not this weekend. A momentous occasion indeed. Do not forget to subscribe subscribe to our RSS feed so you can receive instant updates as soon as we post new content. We just hit the 200 subscriber mark, so join the party. Do you subscribe to the RSS feed, Tim?
I am still trying to figure out what this Google thing is that they're talking about, Rob. Eventually I'll get there, but until I get the crank off the side of my laptop, it's going to take me a while to figure out all this new technology stuff, eh?
Well, I see you've joined me in the chat room, so that's a good sign. Well done. And let's get to this week's story. Our top story this week is yet again more A-Rod drama. Yes, the Yanks have decided that they may, they're mulling at any rate, that they may not give A-Rod, this according to reports, his $6 million bonus if he passes Willie Mays and homers. Now, apparently the deal here is, as part of a 10-year contract extension that he signed in December 2007, there was a separate marketing agreement that called for these $6 million payments for as up to 5 milestones that are designated by the Yankees. The Yankees can say, okay, that's a good enough milestone. We'll give you $6 million. And each payment is due within 15 days. Designation is exchanged for rights such as using Rodriguez's name and image and selling licensed goods. It's kind of a marketing thing for the Yankees. They try to build goodwill or as he, smashes records. Now, I would think tying Willie Mays place on the career list is a milestone. Tim, what can you tell us about this agreement and what you're hearing about the Yankees apparently deciding that they may just kind of pass on this whole thing?
Well, I think the first thing is as much as the Players Association is not really enamored with having to do it, the Players Association will fight this and be all over it. The bottom line is there's a contract in place between A-Rod and the Yankees, and that contract is very specific. When he reaches certain milestones, he will get paid, and I don't think the Yankees have a leg to stand on. As much as they might not want to pay him, the bottom line is the contract's there. It's in black and white. The Yankees will be paying him. They might fight it, but they'll still end up paying him, I think, if it goes that additional step, Rob.
Well, the thing is, it's unclear what exactly constitutes a milestone. I mean, I'm not predetermined milestones, in which case, predetermined milestones written in the contract, yeah, it's very basic, right? But they could say, well, 660 is not a milestone. Yeah, you tied Willie Mays, but I mean, 600 is a milestone, but 660 is not. They could just see, I mean, depending how it's worded, like all I know about it is that the accomplishments are designated by the Yankees. I don't know if they're designated up front or they decide as it happens. Basically,
no, they're all designated up front, Rob. I went and looked into it.
Oh, okay.
The bonuses are very specific. He gets $6 million when he ties Willie Mays. He gets an additional $6 million if he ties Babe Ruth. $6 million on Aaron and $6 million on Bonds, all on ties. And it's very, very specific in nature. Once he ties their home run mark, the $6 million bonus is to be paid.
Okay, that's 4. What's the other milestone then? Okay, it was unclear that they were that specific. At any rate, if that's the case, then clearly this is going to become an issue with the union. The union's definitely going to step in and file agreements.
Oh, automatic.
But I mean, I guess the bigger issue here is, what are the Yankees thinking exactly?
Well, apparently they're not even talking to A-Rod. So, who knows what they're thinking. The Yankees would love to find some way out of this situation, but the bottom line is there's a signed contract in place, and they're going to cough up the money on this deal. The only way out of some of this money is just to outright release him, pay him his money, and walk away. You might save yourself $6 million on the Willie Mays. I don't think we have to worry about Babe Ruth. That's a possibility over 2 years, but the other two, they could save $12 million just simply by releasing him, eating the balance of his contract, and walking away.
Well, that is a possibility. And the Yanks seem to have done everything in their power to punish him because of his attempts to overturn the $162 2-game suspension last year. Season without the freedom to roster accordingly, right? Because they didn't know their third baseman and essentially, their best power hitter at the time in the lineup. And do they go after a third baseman? How do they juggle their lineup? I mean, they really were kind of hamstrung by that whole situation. And the consensus seems to be that they're now punishing as a result. But I mean, this whole thing to me seems like a massive distraction when the team should be focused on turning things around after winning just 84 games last year. I think they need to figure out how to get to the playoffs as opposed to figuring out how to screw over A-Rod. And really, sadly, I think the Yankees may need him to rebound and provide some power. They didn't have a lot of power last year, Tim.
No, I agree, Rob. They didn't. But right now what they're saying is the only place that A-Rod is going to play next year will be in the DH role. And I tend to agree with you. This has gone on and on and on. Like, either take our A-Rod back, live under the terms of the contract, take whatever production you can get, or basically shut up, cut them, and move on. But enough of the distraction. The Yankees are going to have their hands full with the AL East, with the Jays improving their lot a little bit. And, hey, Boston, if they can eventually find a way to get all 7 outfielders on the field at the same time, they could be a very solid club. They don't need all of the
new rules.
Yeah, new rules. Yes, we have Rover 1, Rover 2. Yes, okay, well done. and based on your baseball experience, those Rovers are effective players, aren't they?
Absolutely, they sure are. It makes it a hell of a lot harder to find a hole when there's 2 Rovers out there. Now, he's been told he's going to actually have to win a job in spring training. Nothing's guaranteed. Originally, they looked at him at third, but of course they re-signed Chase Headley, so third base is spoken for. We have DH and maybe some first base, but at DH, you got Carlos Beltran who you want to rest, right? He'll need some time there. I mean, don't forget last year down the stretch because of his shoulder, he couldn't throw. DH most of the time. He couldn't play the outfield. And you've got Chris Young and Garrett Jones there to play right field, which they're there to spell Beltran, give him rest, right? They need to get in there. Mark Teixeira probably needs some time at DH. He's no spring chicken and, his wrist issues. A-Rod could play some first, I guess, but how many at-bats is A-Rod going to get this year? Given all those moving parts.
Well, you know what, Rob? Call me a little bit of a sick puppy, okay? But you know what? There's nothing I would love to see more than A-Rod smack 2 home runs in his first game at DH. Smack another one in his next game. Maybe end up with 5 home runs by the end of the first week of the season. Well, wouldn't that present an interesting challenge to the Yankee brass?
Yeah, well, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, he's a hero again, and it's just, they still hate him. At least if they're going to pay all this money to him, they may as well freaking get some value.
Well, yeah.
If there's a contentious relationship regardless, less contentious if he's producing it.
Well, of course it is, but, it's just
make it impossible to cut him.
Yeah, it's just a total mess is what it is. And, either take him back, take what you can get out of him, or walk away. But people are really, really tired of this whole drama situation, I think, Rob.
I know. We went away for a year, and it's back. It's back.
It's back, yeah.
Look at some of the numbers that he's heading up to. We talked about the 6 homers to make. He needs 31 more RBIs to reach 2,000. 61 hits shy of 3,000. 81 runs shy of 2,000. I mean, those are unbelievable numbers, especially when you factor in the home runs. Like, wow. But I saw some projections of Steamer projects A-Rod to get 410 plate appearances. And for the year, drive in 45 runs, score 45 runs, steal 5 bases, and hit 5. But really, let's face it, as an actual baseball player, he's been in free fall since that massive 2007 season, which is when they gave him that 10-year extension. Ever since he signed that extension, that was it. It's been like, look at his OPS by any measure, his WAR, any measure you look at, his numbers consistently fallen since that year, to the point where, I mean, God, I don't know.
Well, but you know what? Despite the length of the contract, et cetera, baseball owners will never learn, and they will continue to grant 10-year contracts to 32-year-old players. And hey, I certainly don't feel sorry for them. I don't feel sorry for the Yankees. You know, hey, they felt at the time they were getting a good deal. Hey, they said this is what we're willing to pay you. A-Rod said that sounds good to me. They signed an agreement, and away you go. They got you reap what you sow. And if you want to start investing in players in their early 30s on long-term contracts, man, you're asking for trouble. The risk factor is written all over it, Rob.
Oh, well, let me be clear, Tim. In no way was I playing tiny violins for the New York Yankees. I would never, ever, ever do that. That's just not going to happen.
As a Red Sox, I know you're a Red Sox fan, so I was going to. My next question was, you know, like, hey, were you drinking tonight or something?
Even Red Sox fandom notwithstanding, just as a baseball fan, unless you're actually a Yankee fan, you pretty much hate the Yankees. You know what I mean? They're just the most easily hateable team in the majors, and it happened for a very, very long time. So,
well, unless you're an Expos fan and enamored with Jeffrey Loria like me, well, yeah, then the Yankees take second.
No, well, of course you might hate someone more, but you're definitely going to hate them. Like, for instance, the Arizona Diamondbacks, I really have no feeling. I have no animosity and I have no love. It's just like, man, Diamondbacks, every now and then they're good, every now and then they suck. It's like, whatever. I couldn't really give a crap one way or the other. But the Yankees, I'd love to see them squirm and struggle. And right now, I mean, first of all, they have the distraction of Jeter. Yeah, I think it's a bit of a relief that Jeter's gone, only in respect in so much as they don't have to worry about a substandard. Let's face it, the last couple of years, Derek Jeter was a substandard hitter. Having a substandard hitter at the top of the order anymore is no longer an issue. But now they trade one headache for another, and a much-hated headache. At least Jeter, even if the Yankees weren't winning, he was beaten all season, Jeter, on his farewell tour, as he should have been. You know, one of the all-time greats. But now, you've got this guy who's just a pariah. So, well, let's switch from one kind of baseball player to the exact opposite, a man who I'd like to honor, who personified everything that is great about the game, great with fans, always in a great mood, just ego-lucky, even when he played for shitty teams over the years. Of course, I'm talking about Ernie Banks, who died a day ago of a heart attack, just a week shy of his 84th birthday. Tim, I imagine you got a chance to see him play in his heyday.
Yeah. Yeah. I was there, Rob. I was there. Yeah.
Why don't you tell me about some of the first-hand recollections you have of watching Ernie Banks play? Well, I mean, he retired in 1971. Wait a second. How old were you in 71 again? You were about 12, 13?
That would be it, 13, yes. At that point in time, I was a Leafs fan. They were coming off 2 cups, okay? What did I know about baseball? The only baseball player I knew a lot about growing up in my misspent youth was Ferguson Jenkins, and that's because he was a Canadian guy. Okay.
So you didn't watch baseball when you were a kid?
No, I wasn't a big baseball fan. No, I followed the Expos in the early 70s, early mid-70s. That's where I started following the game, was through the Expos and into the 80s. But growing up, I was a big-time hockey fan.
Well, I was 5 in 1971, so I have absolutely no recollection of watching Banks play. But I do have some interesting anecdotes. Now, here's a great story. Way back in July 1967, when Banks was still playing, a Chicago councilman proposed to deport an unfinished Picasso statue to France and have it replaced with an Ernie Banks statue, which I think is just fantastic. And as it turns out, now that Ernie Banks statue has been temporarily moved out of storage. Like, it was in front of Wrigley, but they're doing some renovations. They moved it away so it wouldn't get all dusty and, possibly damaged. They've taken it out and put it at the Richard J. Daley Center right beside that Picasso statue this week only until Saturday, so mourners can pay their respects to Mr. Cobb, which I think is a very classy move.
Yeah, I totally agree, Rob. A very classy move for a very classy individual. As far as the renovations are concerned, the Cubs are very, very concerned because what they're doing is they're redoing all of the bleachers, and I believe that's 6,000 seats or something that along those lines. But what their big concern is, they fear that the beer sales could drop off by 90% with the bleachers not being ready until May.
Yeah. Are you kidding? My God. The stories of the bleacher creatures out there. I mean, they've already had to limit beer sales over the years for many, many episodes, as we know.
And can you imagine, Rob, they're taking these bleacher creatures and they're going to mix them in with the regular crowd? could be chaos.
It could be, but are they going to suddenly, out of their element, will they bring the rest of the crowd down to their level, or will they adapt? I mean, that's the question. I mean, will they suddenly kind of be like, oh, we're at the opera, we're not at the rodeo? You know what I mean? Like, will they suddenly find a level of modicum within them that higher price seats, or will they just, will they just be themselves?
I don't see the old axiom, when in Rome, do as the Romans. I don't think that's going to apply, Rob.
So you can take the asshole out of the forest, I guess, but you can't really take the forest out of him, or whatever the case may be. Now back to Banks. As I said, he retired in 1971, but he continued to work with the team in official and unofficial capacities right up until his death. He originally came to the Cubs in 1953, and did you know he was their first black player ever?
No, I wasn't aware of that, Rob.
He came right out of the Negro Leagues. He was the first one they ever had. Spent his entire 19-year career with the team, 512 homers, 277 steals as a shortstop, still National League records, 14-time All-Star, back-to-back MVP with Odyssey teams. Won a Gold Glove in 1960. Twice led the NL in homers. Twice led elected into the Hall of Fame in 1977. What kind of memories do you have of Ernie Banks there, Tim?
Well, the memories aren't real strong. Growing up in the 70s, memories of anything aren't real strong, Rob. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I forgot that you lost that whole decade. My bad.
Yeah, well, there's a gap or three in there. The one thing, I think it's great that what the Cubs have done as far as the statue is concerned, but you know what they should really do if they really want to honor Ernie Banks in a big way is their opening game this year, they should play a doubleheader, a true doubleheader, and I think that would be as great an honor as they could ever bestow.
That's a great idea, and call it Ernie Banks Day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Maybe they should even, change the name of the doubleheader to an Ernie Banks.
Well, because that was one of Ernie's mottos, wasn't it? A great day to play a game, let's play two.
Absolutely, and I mean, that's one of the all-time baseball sayings. Now, talk to me about Banks as an icon. To me, it's hard to imagine any athlete in the history of the city having a bigger connection. We had Michael Jordan, of course, all the championships, and I mean, greatest basketball player ever, arguably. And he was close, perhaps, but he didn't spend his entire career with the Bulls or even playing basketball. And since then, he's been involved with other teams since his retirement, so he's not kept that Chicago connection. Walter Payton, maybe. Yeah. Stan Mikita, maybe. I mean, Bobby Hull wound up leaving the team. I mean, what Chicago athlete in the history of Chicago, and I mean, it is a long and proud history of sports in Chicago, has that connection to the city the way Ernie Banks does?
Yeah, I definitely think The only players that I could think of in that light would be, Walter Payton and Stan Mikita for hockey. It's pretty tough to beat Mikita as far as a hockey legend in the Windy City is concerned. He was there for the whole 9 yards. Great player.
Well, I agree, but I mean, in terms of the connection to the city, and not just, I'm talking everything, like the great performance, great connection to the fans, great connection to the city, like really transcend the sport, become an icon of the city. Banks, to me, is at the top of the list of any Chicago, like, despite the fact, or the fact that the Cubs were so bad for so long, makes it even more remarkable that he's such a legend, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, didn't the Cubs finish last in the season that he won the MVP?
Well, that's what I'm saying. He won 2 MVPs on both on losing teams. Like, that doesn't happen.
No. Did Chicago ever have a winning team when he was there? Might be the easier question.
They must be a winning team because Pirates had the record for the most consecutive losing seasons, right?
I'm not sure. They maybe longest.
The Pirates just snapped their record last year for the longest consecutive losing streak, like seasons 19 straight or whatever it was. The Cubs had
not make. You mean not making the playoffs?
Oh, I'm talking about losing season.
Okay.
The Pirates, you have to go back to 92. For the last time they made the playoffs. I'm just talking about 500 teams.
Okay.
The fact is, I mean, it's a lot easier to make the playoffs now than it was back then. I mean, that his total of 2,528 games that he's played is an MLB record for most games played without ever appearing in the postseason.
Well, I'm not shocked. Shocked to hear that. Not at all.
I mean, he's got to be absolutely the greatest player ever that never, ever played the playoffs. It's just, that was the one thing missing from his career. But this is what I'm saying. The fact that they never had a World Series parade for this guy, yet he's such a legend.
Yeah, I can't. The only other player that I can think of that might be up there as far as, great players that never... that never did anything in the playoffs would be A-Rod.
Well, but at least he made the playoffs.
Sort
of. He did one year he finally busted that, but almost every one of his playoff experiences was sour. Absolutely. He really did not really have an ability to really stink it up and choke in the playoffs. Yeah, for some reason. He's not the kind of player that races game to a new level. And that's really one of the huge differences between being a cheater, of course, so many. Look at some of Banks' numbers. I mean, I mentioned over 2,500 career games. Mostly played as a shortstop, but he played first base as well. 1,300 runs, almost 2,600 hits, over 400 doubles, 90 triples, over 510 homers, over 1,650, almost 1,650 RBIs. Lifetime slash line, 274, 330, 500. Pretty impressive for a shortstop. I mean, he wasn't a big drawer of walks, but I would take that over a 19-year span. And the idea that a shortstop could have power was a strange notion back then. It was not.
Well, yeah, back then a shortstop was basically, it was all glove. If you got anything offensive out of a shortstop, it was basically considered a bonus. The shortstop was the one gap in the lineup. Hit in the 8th spot, and you took what you could get as long as he was a vacuum cleaner on the field.
Yeah, exactly. His funeral is Saturday. One thing I wanted to ask you about Banks. Once upon a time, we thought that a young Starlin Castro was emerging as perhaps the next Ernie Banks. Now, looking now, is that fair comment?
No, I don't think Castro has ever had that potential. I don't think he'll ever be that player. I think the reason that it was probably brought up at one point in time is because of the relative young age that Castro got into the game and the potential that he could be the face of the Cubs for a long, long time, but with what the Cubs have in the minor league system, I don't see Castro spending his whole career in Chicago, Rob. And I think after that great rookie season, I think what we're seeing now is more of the Starling Castro as compared to, that great jump start he got in his first year.
Well, he did have the great rookie year, and he backpedaled for a couple of years, but he bounced back last season to an extent, and definitely showed that perhaps there is some upside to his game. But the comparisons were made very early on, so it's really not fair to put a label on a player that early. I only bring it up because when I was searching around for information on Banks, stumbled upon that and thought to myself, well, it's a good opportunity to kind of bring it out now and see what we think now. Now, you had anything else you want to say about Banks at all, Tim?
No. He was a great player, and our world is definitely saddened by his passing, Rob.
Absolutely. One of the good ones. Now, Tim, you had a couple of things you wanted to bring up. You wanted to talk a little bit about your deep sleepers, I believe.
Well, yeah, looking forward to seeing that one hitting the old presses at RotoRob. Each and every year heading into the spring, I always look for some players a little bit off the radar and try and get them out there to the masses. Some of the players that I'll be targeting that I think warrant our attention a little bit more than they're probably getting at this stage of the game.
Yeah, when Tim talks about his deep, we're talking deep sleepers. I mean, everyone seems to have sleepers to the point where best sleepers, he ain't a sleeper anymore. Tim's sleepers remain sleepers because no one talks about them but Tim, and that's a good thing because you have a chance to really nab some off-the-radar guys. And we're not talking about guys you would be picking in the top 5 rounds. These are guys you can be laying a buck down late in an auction or like last couple of rounds, you want to take a flyer. These are the kind of guys that you want to look at. Maybe even some of them are in-season wire pickups, but guys you want to track. And chances are 75, 80% of the time, Tim is going to be bang on because that's what he does.
Why, thank you, Rob. I appreciate that.
Well, no problem. Your deep sleepers are legendary. And I apologize to those who have not been posted yet, sort of backlog with the awards. I just finished editing them. I just have to do some formatting, and it's ready to roll. So expect that very soon.
Good, because I've been telling everybody they're going to be up. They're going to be up soon, and people are chomping at the bit. Rob, I tell you,
we're
going to send them over your way.
Well, I told you if there's a problem, just because I need to be pushed. I have been just completely snowed under. And the other thing is, and I guess I probably shouldn't say this in my podcast, but I'm actually trying to concentrate on work more than RotoRob these days. And, I know it's a strange concept, but nobody wants to hear that. Nobody gives a shit that I can't make a living or whatever, that, can't survive. But
what was that word you used? Was that work I heard, Rob?
Tiny violins are playing. I know.
Do you want me to give a couple? You want me to give a couple names here, Rob, or what?
You mean for the deep sleepers?
Yeah.
Go ahead, give a couple sneak peeks. Some of your highlights there. Absolutely, go for it.
Okay,
okay.
Let's take a look at the Los Angeles Angels. Nick Tropiano, really like the kid. When you look at the back end of the Angels rotation, there's a lot of question marks, and Tropiano, he led the PCL in ERA last year with a 3.03, and considering it is such a hitter's league, definitely somebody to keep your eye on. And the other guy I'll mention is a Toronto Blue Jay who just was recently acquired from the Detroit Tigers, and unless the Jays make a move to fill second base, we saw Ryan Goins last year, and Ryan Goins is Ryan goings, and I really think that Devon Travis is going to see some significant playing time, quite possibly as early as May, because the Jays have a definite hole at second base, and I think this kid's going to be the guy to fill it.
Cool. Any other players you want to mention, Matt?
No, I'll leave the rest. I'll leave the rest for the print version, Rob. We'll just tease them a little bit and let you know. Okay. I don't want to give out too much information, right?
Sounds good. I want to talk a little bit about Rob Manfred, specifically that he's a shitty rat bastard. Apparently, what exactly is your issue with Rob Manfred? Now, I know you are a huge Bud Selig fan, so anyone replacing Bud Selig is, of course, going to not meet your approval, but what's your issue with Manfred?
Well, my issue with Manfred started with the renegotiated posting clause, where I thought he managed to lie and finagle his way through that one and show his true colors. Eventually, looking at changes to that particular agreement that did nothing but favor the Japanese teams, and they'll keep their star players forever. But he came out in his, State of the Union address, stating that, he's tired of the defensive shift, and he'd like to ban it from the game. What do you think of that, Rob?
He wants to ban the defensive shift. He doesn't like the way the game's played. The defensive shift has been in baseball for as long as the game's been played, pretty much. Defensive shifts are nothing new, and they're not being practiced any more than they were. Plenty above this. They're not being practiced any more than they were back in the day. So, basically saying he wants to completely change the game because that what a jackass.
Well, that's pretty much my sentiment. He wants to ban that. I don't know how he has envisioning this. Maybe there'll be a little circle on the field, and everybody has to stay in the little circle until the batter swings.
This is what I'm saying. I mean, a second baseman can easily shift 3 feet to his left. Is that a defensive shift? A first baseman comes off the bag when there's no one on, but he has to play on the bag when there's a runner there. I mean, is that a defensive shift? Like, are you kidding?
Yeah, well, no, basically what I think it's demonstrating is the fact that, Bobby has a little bit of work to do before he has a real good knowledge of the game, maybe, Rob. Yeah,
well, out of the frying pan into the fire, so he's your new poster on your dartboard.
Well, yeah, I needed to find a way to replace Selig anyway, so this is just a nice natural transition for me, right?
Well, we knew that he was pretty much going to toe the line as far as Selig goes, but I didn't realize he'd be this much of an idiot with this whole infield shift thing. But the other thing you want to talk about is Anthony Rizzo apparently has come out with some big words.
He's proclaimed the fact that this is the year of the Cubs. They're going to the World Series. And, if you can believe this, I think he's in the best shape of his life, Rob.
Well, that's always something. I mean, the best shape of your life stories. Gotta love those. Because nobody comes to spring training in the worst shape of their life. They're always in the best shape of their life.
Rob, I want just once in my life, okay? And last year, Jesus Montero would have been the perfect candidate. I want a guy to say, hey, I spent all winter playing pool, drinking beer, and chasing women, and I'm weighing, I'm 35 pounds over my playing weight, and you know what? Damn it, I worked hard to get there. Enough of this. I'm in the best shape of my life. Let's be honest here. Have somebody step out and be the man, right?
Well, that's a Tug McGraw thing. Remember Tug McGraw's classic quote?
Oh, yeah.
When he got that big raise?
Uh-huh.
So what are you going to do with all the extra money, Tug? Well, I'm going to spend 90% of it on booze and women, and the rest of it I'm going to waste.
Yeah, I remember that line real well. Yeah, the rest I'll just throw away.
The rest away. Yeah, that's great. What are you going to do all this money? A couple of things I wanted to go over before we went off the air quickly there, Tim. The Orioles have acquired Travis Snyder from the Pirates, going to Pittsburgh minor leaguer Stephen Tarpley and the ever-famous player to be named later. Snyder is just 26, hit .264 in 140 games last year, set a career high in RBIs. Of course, he was never really panned out the way we thought he would. Although we did recommend him as a waiver wire pickup in August. It's a good move for the Pirates as they had a crowded outfield situation. They needed to open up an everyday job for Gregory Polanco. You got McCutcheon and Marte taking up the other two slots. And now there's a chance for either Jose Tabata or Andrew Lambo to make the team. And my take on it from Baltimore, stake there is that, of course, they lost Nick Markakis and Nelson Cruz in free agency, so they probably could use a little bit of offensive help. I don't think they're done yet. Tarpley, 21 years old, pitched a low A, had a losing record. His K rate was down. His walk rate was up after a stellar debut rookie ball in 2013. He was a third rounder that year, 2013. Heading into the draft, there were a lot of questions about his makeup and maturity, so who knows? I mean, I think he has stuff, but he does not necessarily have the head to make it, so maybe the Pirates will turn around. What do you think of this deal there, Tim?
Well, hey, the Orioles, I think, will be very, very impressed when they see Snyder. He's a fine physical specimen. He's in great shape. He's gonna tear the cover off the ball in batting practice, and then they'll probably be disappointed once he hits the field. Would be my guess. But hey, if you're looking at a deep sleeper, somebody to fill your bench slot in deeper leagues. Yeah, you could take a chance on him. It's not like other players' careers haven't been resurrected in Baltimore, but based on what I've seen out of Snyder over the years, I'm not a believer that all of a sudden he's going to be a different player than what we've seen up till now. It's possible, but I'm just not a big believer.
Keep in mind, Jim, he's only 26. I mean, the Orioles definitely found lightning in a bottle with Chris Davis, did they not? So who knows?
Well, yeah, they did, and that's why I'm not totally dissing the guy, but yeah, I suffered through a lot of his growing pains in Toronto, and it was fairly painful, Rob.
Well, deal with Gordon Beckham. We talked about that briefly up front. Mika Johnson for starting second base job in Chicago, Tim.
Well, yeah, and Sanchez is also lurking there as well. My gut feeling is that Beckham isn't going to. I don't think he's going to take too much time or cause too much havoc. What concerns me is the fact that he might end up platooning with Connor Gillespie at third base. That's the one that has me more concerned. But hey, they've got nothing invested per se in Beckham. It's not a bad signing, and let's face it. The White Sox have built themselves a very, very strong club over the off season, and hey, if Beckham can provide some help off the bench and filling multiple positions, he's going to be an asset to that club.
Well, perhaps the more interesting takeaway from this Beckham signing was that they had to DFA Diane Viciedo to create roster space for Beckham. And now there's talk the Phils may try to swoop in and make a deal for Viciedo to add to their outfield depth. Do you think Diane Viciedo is done, or could he reemerge somewhere?
Did you say the Phillies?
That's apparently the word on the street. I mean, he's young enough that he would fit their youth movement.
Well, yeah, I was going to say the only problem with the Phillies is they don't sign anybody under 30, Rob, so he doesn't qualify.
Apparently, they're in a rebuilding mode now. Apparently. I'm still waiting to see evidence of this great rebuilding mode, but that's the word.
So far, they haven't moved anybody, Rob, other than Jimmy Rollins. So Ruben is taking a very slow and cautious approach to this rebuilding, and at his current pace, most of the guys in his lineup will have retired before he has a chance to move them.
Yes, it's going to be rebuilding by attrition. Exactly. Well, they would love to get rid of Raiho, but who the hell is going to take that contract? It's ridiculous.
Well, did you see what he had to say about Howard?
Who?
Ruben Amaro.
Amaro?
Yeah.
refresh my memory.
Well, basically, he dissed him publicly and said he'd have to play for a job this year.
Well, that's a great way to really pump up someone you're trying to trade. It's pretty stupid thing to say about a guy you're trying to trade.
Well, yeah, that's gotta leave Howard real excited about spring training, eh?
Well, never mind that. It's just like if you're actively trying to trade him, and now you just told everyone that you don't even plan to play him. In which case, you just lowered his bidding price, you idiot. Like, you could think that privately, but you don't make it public, you moron. You don't weaken your bargaining position of what a star Howard is.
Well, you know what, and Howard has given 100% to that organization since day one. You know, it's not his fault that he got hurt. You know, these things happen.
It's his fault. I mean, let's face it, conditioning is not his strong suit. He's a big boy, Tim.
Yeah, he's a big boy, but anybody could have had that Achilles injury. That's, you know what I mean?
Sure, but what I'm saying is he's more vulnerable to an injury as a big man carrying around a lot of weight. Yeah. That's all.
I think he was sixth in RBIs in the NL last year with 95. That's not bad for a guy who's underperforming.
I know. He's still a great run producer, but the fact is that he has a shitload left on that salary, and first basemen are pretty much a dime a dozen, and you want your first baseman to be able to hit over 220. That's all. It's going to be hard to move that contract. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Phillies, if they're serious about rebuilding, they're just going to have to eat some cash and get it over with and move forward. Simple.
Yes. I mean, the big piece there is Cole Hamels, and they're waiting and waiting and waiting. And I think at this point they're going to wait till the trade deadline.
Well, they're at the stage right now where unless they get overwhelmed with an offer, they're best off waiting to the trade deadline now, Rob, because at that point in time, your contenders and pretenders will be sitting there. It'll be all sorted out, and somebody will pay, I would have to imagine, a much higher price for Cole Hamels to have him for August and September and a playoff run than they will at this stage of the game.
And plus, you won't have to be competing with the fact that Scherzer was on the market and Price and all these guys that were on the market, right? At the time. That, you know, and the free agents and what have you, it's going to be a lot more of a captive market. What they're asking for basically is ridiculous. I mean, Amaro needs a bit of a reality check there, but we'll see how that plays out. But your point is well taken that the Phillies rebuilding process is like watching an iceberg melt, and I'm talking about pre-global warming iceberg melting. You know, it's painfully slow. Speaking of Philly, the Phillies, an ex-Philly got himself in a little trouble this week with Jason Ward pleaded guilty to reckless driving and will spend 5 days in jail, caught driving 105 miles an hour on the Capitol Beltway. Actually, he originally was sentenced to 10 days in jail, but the sentence was reduced upon appeal. But this is the best part I love about this. Ward will serve his sentence on weekends to minimize disruption to his rehab following shoulder surgery. Yet another example of athletes being treated differently than others. If you or I were driving 105 miles an hour and got a 10-day jail sentence, first of all, as if they're going to reduce it. Second of all, they're going to let you serve it on weekends?
Well, you know, Rob, I'm willing to bet, okay, if it was you or me, we'd have the back window of our car shot out, and we would be able to tell people firsthand what it feels like to be tased, okay? And that's just a start.
Exactly. We'd be going somewhere where they don't serve gummy bears.
No. Soap on a rope, not a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. Got some questions in there in the chat room about, I see you're talking about the shift there. Anything
Joe and I are chatting a bit.
That's all I had to throw you. Anything else you wanted to talk about? Oh, Tim, what do you got to plug for us today?
Oh, what have I got to plug?
What are you doing?
Hey, every Sunday night you can catch me on Blog Talk Radio with my good friend Richard Wilson talking baseball at the Prospect 361 podcast every Sunday from 9 Eastern until supposedly 10, but it usually ends up being 11. And when I'm not podcasting, you can find me hanging out at Patton & Company or at the Prospect 361 Facebook page. Having a lot of fun with it, Rob. Thanks for having me on this evening. It is always a pleasure talking up the game with you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Next time, hopefully, we'll have some actual materials coming. We head into spring training, some actual stories to follow.
Well, anytime you have an open slot, just give me a shout, Rob. Always a pleasure, like I said, talking up the game with you.
Right on. Well, thanks again for showing up, Tim. Appreciate it immensely. It was great. And we're going to close the show with some Sean Mulray and see you all next week. Have yourself a good week.